All right, forget the disaster space, but I have the top, I have the bottom, I've got 2 pieces of each, and I have right sides together. I cannot sew and video at the same time, so those will be separate. But you're going to see that I'm going to sew along the edge at the top, down the side, along the bottom, back along the other side, and then the top corner. I'm going to leave this part over here open. I'm going to do the same thing here. And it looks like these are much too big, but we are going to cut a lot of this down. And the only fire I'm going to use in this project is going to be to seal the end of this little ribbon. It's a piece of scrap ribbon. Alright, so this is going to be the best view I think I can set up with my camera. But I'm going to start by doing a couple of stitches forward, very small ones. And then a couple of stitches backwards. And these are to secure the next line of stitching. So now I'm going forwards again. And when I come to my corner, I'm going to stop, lift my my presser foot, and then I'm going to do my next line. And I'm going to make sure I end with my needle down, lift my presser foot, do the bottom. Oh, hold on. This is not the straightest stitching I've done. I am trying to make it so that you can see. Lift my presser foot, turn, and again. Let's see. Looks like I've got a little bind up. Tools like this can be very useful. Lift, and we're going to do the last little bit. Now we're going to go backwards again to end our line of stitching. There we go, and lift, and now we're going to trim our ends. We're going to do the same thing for the top, and I'll be right back. All right, now you can see I have done my stitches. It's kind of hard to see, but I have this big margin here on the edges. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clip these corners and cut down the edges, and then I'm going to flip the whole thing inside out with a chopstick. Let me see if I can get you a better view. All right, so I am going to clip the corners on these right near the stitch line. And then I'm going to trim down the bulk at the seams. But I'm going to leave this top part unaltered. And now the next thing I'm going to use is I'm going to use this tool to turn the whole thing inside out, and then we are going to iron it. Ooh, you did choose a fiddly project to start with. All right, let me see how hard it's going to be to turn this inside out. And the chopstick is for the corners, because you want your corners to be nice and sharp so that they look like that tea bag. And I did just eyeball the proportions on these because I have never made this before. And I just figured you were looking for a better idea of how to do this, not necessarily perfection in measurements, since you already have a pattern. We're going to turn this one inside out too. And then the next thing we are going to do is we are going to iron this, because the difference between ironing and not ironing is what makes a project look amazing versus just okay. And do you see how nicely the chopstick like really helps pop those corners out? And now you have these raw open tops, and this is where we're going to put our ribbons in. And so I'm going to iron this, and then I'll be right back. All right, so the next part's going to be kind of hard. Our goal right now is to fold in this raw edge to the inside of the project, like that, on both sides. And then we're going to sandwich the ribbon in between. And then we are going to sew the whole thing shut. I think I'll have an easier time with this. I do not have a good camera setup. This is just my phone, so forgive the mediocre quality of all of this. There we go. And then we're going to put the edge of the ribbon in. This was just some scrap ribbon I saved and had wrapped around a piece of cardboard. There we go. And once all of your edges are on the inside, we are going to pin it and then sew around the edge. We're going to do this for the top and for the bottom. There we go. Pinned here. And you see how we no longer have any edges showing. And I'm going to sew along the top, around every single edge, just like I showed you earlier. That's called top stitching. I'm going to do it pretty close to the edge too. I did not leave myself enough space up here, so this is a pretty small seam allowance that I gave myself. But you want to make sure that when you're sewing, you're catching the top edge that you just folded in. Like I did with the last set, I'm going to go backwards a couple stitches and then forwards to go all the way around the edge. And you really shouldn't leave your needles in when you sew. There we go. And so what we're doing now is called top stitching. We are stitching along the top of the pattern, and this is a very rough, not very good version. There we go. That's not a good top stitch. We're going to pretend that I did not make the tiniest most mediocre top stitch on the planet. And it goes to show that it doesn't matter how long you've been doing stuff, you can still manage to make it look very silly and not very good, even after years and years and years of practice. So again, this will be a little easier since this is a larger piece. I'm going to start by putting my piece under, dropping the presser foot, and then removing my needle. You don't want to leave your needles in because you can actually sew over them and they can break your sewing needle. Sorry, your pins. Your pins can break your sewing needle and you can actually injure yourself. Not ideal. Backwards a couple stitches and then forwards. And we are done. Whoops. You just want to trim all of your threads. And, like I said, I still need to trim the threads, but here you go. All of your edges are enclosed. And I would probably iron this again, but because this now is a polyester ribbon, I'm not going to use it without a pressing cloth. So I have a piece of organza here that I can use for that. Or you can also just put another piece of fabric on top of it to basically make sure that you aren't melting your ribbon to your iron.